Hi, good morning everyone. So today we are going to look at one interesting topic in C++, which is function. Okay, so what is user-defined function? User-defined function can be used to define reusable code. You can design reusable code, organize and simplify code. Okay, so if you look at the following codes here, gives the sum of integer in three separate groups. Okay, so the code is to determine the sum of integers. Okay, we have code 9a computes the sum of integer from 1 to 10, and then code 9b compute the sum of integer from 20 to 37, and lastly code 9c compute the sum of integer from 35 to 49. So none of these use any function. Okay, to see the difference, we will show you in code 9d that we can give a much simplified program by using a defined function. Okay, this is code 9a. 9a, you have your data type integer, variable name sum. Okay, and then for integer I from 1 less than equals to 10, I plus plus sum, it will add the sum from 1 to 10. So sum from 1 to 10. So what this loop here does, this loop here, it will add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10, and then lastly it will give you the total sum. Okay, and similarly what code 9b does, okay, same thing, but now I start from 20 to 37. So the first iteration, it will add 20 plus 21 plus 22 plus 23 plus 24 and so on up to 37. In code 9c, it determines the sum from 35 to 49. Okay, so start from 35 plus 36 plus 37 plus 38 plus 39 up to 49. By using a defined function, we can produce a common program once reused for different starting and ending integer. So that's what I want to show you in this code. Okay, how to write a function. Okay, so go to your Visual C++, File, New Project, and then choose Win22 Console Application and type here code 9d. Okay, and then OK. Choose Next, Empty Project, Finish. Source file, add a new item, C++ file, code 9d. Okay, so we want to show how we can define a function. Okay, we want to determine the sum of integers. Okay, three different type of integers, but we want to join it in one folder, in one file. Okay, so the first thing you have is include iOS stream, and then we have using namespace std, and then we have void main. Okay, I don't need to have using namespace std. Okay, and then what else you have? Okay, so looks like then we can define our integer. So what we have, the first code will be integer from integer I, and then we have integer, want to give a function called sum. Okay, so this is the part where you define the integer. So usually you have this code, but if you want to use a function, this code here, it will be in the bottom. Okay, so here you define the function. Okay, so forget about integer I here. I'm going to integer sum. I have integer n1, integer n2. Okay, this is how define the function, and then what is that function here? You have to write it here. Okay, so for integer sum, you initializing the sum. For integer I equals to n1, I less than equal n2, and I plus plus. Okay, so what is sum? Sum will be plus equals to I. It will add the integer and then return sum. So you need to return the function sum. Okay, and this will be the rest of the body, rest of your code, where you display the cout. Okay, so we have void main here, and then okay, so I can say cout sum from 1 to 10 is, so I have sum. I'll call the function. Look at here, it's telling you what to call, integer n1. So n1 is an integer, 10. And then end of line. Okay, and similarly cout sum from 20 to 37 is sum 20 37, and then you have end of line, and then cout sum from 35 to 49 is sum 35 49, end of line. Okay, then cin.get. Okay, so this is how you determine the sum of the integer for three integer. Okay, let's run the code and see the output. So you can get the sum of integer for these three different sum of integer in one code by using a function called sum. So that's what happened in this code 9D. In code 9D, where you can see that the sum of integer is being determined. Okay, so let me explain to you more about this code 9D that we have created. So a function named sum. Okay, this is the function. Okay, this is the type. This is the function name. Okay, sum with n1 and n2, they are both integer. The statement in main function invokes sum 110, sum 2037 and sum 3549 to compute the sum value respectively. Okay, a function is a collection of statements grouped together to perform an operation. That's why it called user-defined function. A collection of statements grouped together to perform an operation. Previously, we exposed to functions such as power, random, and main. For example, when we call power AB, the system execute the statement in the function and return the result. So you have used before this code, power AB, is something like a built-in function. Okay, but now how can you define a function? Okay, defining a function. A function definition consists is function name, parameters, return type, return value type, and body. Okay, so this is the syntax for defining a function. So you need to have a return value type. In our case, we use integer, which represent our integer value type. Function name, sum. Okay, this is the function name that we have defined. List of parameters. So I have integer n1, n2. I have integer n1 and integer n2. Okay, so this is my what do you call, parameters. Okay, these are the syntax. Okay, you have to define it before the function body where you use that function. Okay, the function body. The function header specify the function return value type, function name, and its parameter. Like I've said, the return value type is the data type to return the value. Some function perform operation without returning a value. Okay, in this case, return value type keyword is void. So void here stand for without returning a value. So you have void here. The function that return a value are called value returning function, and the function does not return a value is called void function. Okay, does not return value. Okay, the variable declared in the function header are known as formal parameters or parameters. A parameter is like a placeholder. The function name and parameter list together constitute the function signature. Parameter are optional. A function may have no parameters. Okay, if it's no parameter, you can just put a bracket like that. The function body contains a collection statement that define what the function does. A return statement using the keyword return is required for the value returning function to return a result. The function exit when return statement is executed. So if you look at the previous coding here, we have this return statement. This is our return statement. Now to use a return value type, you need to come with return statement. So the function will terminate once you read this line and once this thing is satisfied. Okay, and then calling a function execute the code in the function. If a function returns a value, a call to the function usually treated as a value. Example, this is my return value type. This is my return value type, which is integer, and then this is the name of the function. But max34 here assign the value to the variable larger. For example, cout max, so which prints the return value of a function called max. Okay, now let's look at this code here. Code 9e illustrates a function called named max, created to find which of two integers is bigger. So we have this function called, this is the function name, max. There are two parameters which are n1 and n2. So these are the parameters, and these are your integer type. Okay, the function max, so everything in here up to here, this is what you call the function body. Okay, so it will compare. So integer results. Okay, this is what you want to return. Okay, so if n1 greater than n2, results is n1, else result is n2, and then it will return results. Okay, and then this is your main cout where you print out the solution. So there are two parameters which are n1 and n2. Function max will return the larger integer between these two integers. The function max is invoked by calling max ij. Okay, so max ij here refer to your parameters that you included. Okay, so cout I, so it will tell us maximum 10 and 5, let's say, is k. What is k? K is the maximum for integer 5 that you can obtain from these results. Okay, now what is a void function? A void function does not return a value. Okay, does not return a value. Code 9f show how to define and invoke void function. Okay, let's do it. We want to show how we can define a function in code 9f. Okay, so I'm gonna create a new project. I'm gonna call it as code 9f. Okay, next, empty project, finish, source file, add a new item, C++ code 9f. Okay, so what we want to do here in this code, so in code 1 we want to show you what happens if we use void. Okay, we want to print a grade. Okay, print the grade for the score. Okay, so let's start with include iOS stream. Then you have using namespace std. Okay, so I'm gonna define a function here. Define a function here using type void. Okay, so I have void print grade double score. Okay, so we know that void here does not return a value. Okay, we know that. So do it like how you have defined the body of the function. So what I have, if score greater than equals to 90, cout, I'm gonna have the letter A here. Okay, end of line. Else if score greater or equals than 80, cout B. example. Okay, end of line. And then if else, if we have score, this is a very simple code. Okay, greater or equal than 70, C out C. Okay, end of line. And then else if we have score greater or equal than 60, C out D, end of line. Else C out F. Okay, so the score here is obtained from this function that we have defined. So to do that, okay, we need to have this thing here. So I will have void main, okay, that asking me to enter a score. Okay, so C out, enter a score. Okay, and then double score, C in score, C out, the grade is, and then print, I'm gonna call that print grade, the function score. Okay, so I should be putting a semicolon here. And cin, there's an underlined cin here. So when you have cin, usually you need to define and include conio.h, but we're not going to use that because we're going to have something called system pause. Okay, cin.get system pause. Okay, so this is the code that we want to see. Don't forget the semicolon in double score here. Okay, so if we look at here, we are using a function type void here, but there is no return statement. There's no return statement because void does not return a value, but it will still use this function print grade here. Okay, so let's run this code. Enter a score 89, the grade is B. Okay, so this is another example. Let's try running a different grade here. Enter a score 65, grade D. Okay, so where 65 lies from here, greater or equal than 60, 65, it will print grade D. Okay, so this is the code we can use to define this function using the type void. Okay, the difference is void does not have a return statement. Now I can also use a type character, okay, if I want to return. Okay, so how to rewrite a code that return a statement? Okay, so I'll show you that with file, project, Win32 code, let's call it 9G, empty project, finish. Source file, add a new item, C++ file, code 9G. Okay, in this code you want to show you how to print the grade for the score, the same code like just now, but with using not with what, but by using return type value. Okay, so we have include iOS string using namespace std. Now here you want to print grade for the score using a return type value. So I'm going to use char as my return type, get grade double score. Okay, so now what's the difference between this code and the previous code is I need to have a return call. So if score greater or equals than 90, return, I'm using character here, char, the type is char, so don't forget your character with a single quotation. Else if score greater or equal than 80, return B. Okay, else if score greater or equal than 70, return C. Else if score greater or equal than 60, return D. Else return F. Okay, so this is the different that we wrote. So now we need to have void main. Okay, so I have something called cout, enter a score, okay, and then double score. So cin score, cout, the grade is cout. Now I'm gonna call that function get grade score, core, end of line. Okay, so this is exactly similar. Okay, for my cout here I need to use this symbol. Okay, now I have system pause. Okay, there you go. This is exactly the same code like what I did in 9F. It's just you're using a return value type function, which is char here, and look at, you have written everywhere in your statement. Okay, let's run this code. Okay, we just wait. There you go, enter score 76, grade C. Okay, so this is how you use two different code like I have explained here. Okay, the first one you see, the print grade code 9F, a call to a void function must be a statement. For example, print grade score as in code 9F. Okay, to see the difference between void and value returning function, we have shown you in code 9G here. Okay, so in code 9G you are using a get grade function, return a character grade based on the numeric score value. A call to this function is cout get grade score. a return statement is not needed for a void function. When you have a void function, you don't need a return statement, but it can be used to terminate the function and returning control to the function call. Okay, so the return function is needed to terminate the function call. Okay, let's look at another code. Okay, another code here. Let's show you if you have an array. Okay, I'm gonna call it code 9H. Okay, add a new item, C++ called code 9H. Okay, so in this code here, we want to have a one-dimensional array to a function. Okay, let's start with include iOS stream using namespace std. Okay, I have a function called void total. Okay, int marks, because it's an array, the dimension is 5. Okay, so here is a function to displaying marks. Okay, so maybe I should put it up here, a code to display marks of 5 students using function. Okay, function marks, array type to the function total. Okay, so total is the function, marks is the array. Okay, so but there is no returning here because it's using the type void, so there's no return value here. So cout displaying marks. Okay, end of the line. Oops. Okay, and then let's have a loop for integer I equals to 0, I less than 5, plus I. Okay, so what you see here in this loop here, where it's going to compute my array, cout student I plus 1, and then you have, remember your array will, the first element will start from 0. Okay, so that's why you have to start from 0, and then I want to write student 1, student 2, and so on. Okay, here you're calling the array marks here. Okay, so my open and curly bracket should be here, end of the line, and now we have void main. Okay, so integer marks, what are the marks? So I need to define it as 88, 76, 90, 61, 69. Okay, and then call the total marks cin.get. There you go, as simple as that, how to display the marks of a function, close curly bracket. Okay, the function call, we need to have a semicolon here. I can see a red line here, which means something is wrong, so expected a semicolon here. Okay, now let's run this code. So before I run this code, I want to tell you what happened. Okay, this code here to display marks for 5 students, so I'm using a void type which means I don't have to use return statement, but the function name is total and the array name is marks 5. Okay, so it will compute the student 1, student 2 and all the marks based on this array here. Okay, let's run it. There you go, displaying marks of 5 student. Okay, now what I want you to do here, okay, try to modify this code so that it uses a return value type. Okay, how can you using a return value type for this code? Maybe you can try to think about it. Okay, so this is all about user defined function. So if you want more, maybe you can just try to work it out for some problems involving function that you can see in your lecture note, especially code 9i. Okay, so I am going to stop here. This is what I have shown you. Okay, so what I want you to do here, try to work on code 9i and 9j, which is too long. Okay, something about modalizing is called modalizing code. Modalizing code makes the code easy to maintain and debug and enable the code to be using. So modalizing is making the code to be easier to debug. Okay, so you can read it on your own. And also we have something called overloading function. Overloading function enables you to define function with the same name as long as their signature are different. Okay, so if you look at this question here, the max function in code 9e works only with the integer data type. What if we need to determine which of two floating point numbers has the largest value? Okay, we can create another function with the same name but different parameters. We call max with integer parameter. The max function that expect integer parameter will be invoked. If you call max with double parameter, the max function that expect double parameter will be encoded. So this is referred to a function overloading. That is, two functions have the same name but different parameter list within one file. Okay, so I can show you in code 9k. So if you look at code 9k, you have integer max, integer type num1 and num2. Okay, and then at the same time you have the max function with the type double here. So if it's integer, the same type, it will use this function body to compute the number. But if it's a double type, it will use this function body. Okay, so this code here, return max among 3 double values. So you have a 3 double value. If you have more than 2, if you have 3, so you can use this double max, double num1, double num2 and double n3. Okay, this is also possible for you to do that. We call it function overloading. So the void main part here, this is a continuation from code 9k. Invoke max function with integer parameter. Okay, this is integer. If I have a double parameter, so I can use this double parameter here. But if I have 3 double parameters, then I can use this code to determine the parameter. Okay, so maybe you can work it out and see how this code run. Now there's also something called function prototypes. A function prototype declares a function without having to implement it. A function header is defined before the function is called. Okay, so this is a code that tells about function prototype. Okay, so what it does here, the function prototype here, so you have the type integer max, integer num1, num2, and then you have double. You define it everything here, okay, before the void function. Okay, so this is what you call function prototype. So if you have to use the parameter with the integer it will refer to my integer type. But if we are using invoke a max function with a double parameter, it will use the double parameter part. But if I'm using a max function with 3 double parameter, it will use it here. Okay, so this is also, you can look it out how the function work. Okay, and the other part is called default argument. Default value can be defined for parameters in a function. C++ allow user to declare function with default argument value. The default argument are, we say here, the default argument are passed to the parameters when the function is invoked without the argument. Okay, so this is a code that says about the default argument. So for example, in this code here, the type is void, display area is the function name, and then you have your parameter here, radius. Okay, so what happened here, you have defined the function body. This is a function body, but if there is no radius assigned, if you look at here, this is radius, right? But double area invoked with default display area 4. So what happened here, if there is no radius assigned, then system will use the default. Okay, system will use the default radius in the void function. So this is what we call default arguments. Okay, arguments. So the default value are passed to the parameters when the function is invoked without the argument. So there's no argument here. Okay, so what happened, it will go to the default void statement here and compute the parameter. Okay, and then in this function as well, we need to know what to declare the variable. Okay, you can have a local, global, or static variable. So maybe in the next type we can explain to you. Okay, so pretty much a variable can be declared as a local or global or static. The scope of a local variable starts from its declaration and continue to the end of the block that contain the variable. The scope of a global variable starts from its declaration and continue to the end of the program. After a function completes its execution, all the local variable is destroyed. Sometimes it is desirable to retain the value stored in the local variable so that they can be used in the next call. So static local variable, that what it means. The static local variable are permanently allowed in the memory for lifetime in the program. A word static is used to declare this type of variable. Okay, so this is what we wanna explain next. So but you can just look into this code 9N and 9O. So local variable here, so this is my function prototype. Okay, so the global variable default to 0. This is my global variable here, and these are my local variable x. X is a local variable, so local variable is used here. Okay, you can just run this code to understand what is happening. Now if I have a static global variable, okay, the static part here is in this function void t1. I have to mention something called static integer x equals to 1. So that means I am declaring the static local variable. Okay, this is the, if you have a static global variable, okay, I need to type it as static integer. That's the difference. Okay, that's the difference compared to my t1 here. If I don't have the word static, it will be my local variable. Okay, I guess that's all for today. Try to solve all the codes given in your lecture note and then submit your answer as homework week 12. Bye for now.